The decision is over, but your mind is not. You already made the decision, you sent the message, you accepted the job, you finally said no. For a little while, you felt lighter. Thank God, it was done. Then you went to bed, the room got quiet, and somehow the decision came back. Did I rush it? What if the other choice was better? I know that feeling. A choice that felt reasonable 6 hours ago suddenly feels suspicious. And the option you rejected? That one starts looking strangely good. There is a simple reason. You are living with the choice you made. You see the bad Monday, the awkward parts, the things you did not expect, but the other option never became real. You never had to live with its problems. You never met that boss on a bad day. You never discovered what would have frustrated you there. The other choice never had the chance to disappoint you. And sometimes you do not actually miss that option. You miss having the option. Before you decided, both doors were still open. Now one is closed. So when doubt returns, I ask, did I actually learn something new? If yes, maybe the decision deserves another look. But if nothing changed, ask, am I seeing a real problem? Or making the option I rejected look better? Sometimes nothing went wrong. You are simply learning how it feels to choose. And let another possibility go. Part 2. The cost becomes real after you choose. The strange thing is this. Sometimes you knew the cost before you decided. You just had not felt it yet. You accepted the new job. You knew it would mean less freedom. Then Friday comes. Your old co-workers are going out together. And you realize you are not part of that routine anymore. You ended the relationship. You knew you would miss them. Then something funny happens during your day. Your first instinct is still to send them a message. And then you remember. You do not do that anymore. You moved away. You knew your friends would be farther away. But knowing that is different from spending Saturday night alone. That is when the cost becomes real. Not always because the decision was wrong, but because the decision became real. I think that is where people sometimes confuse sadness with regret. You can miss something without wanting it back. You can miss your old life without wanting to return to it. You can grieve what you gave up and still believe the choice was right. So when your mind starts questioning everything, ask, what exactly am I missing right now? Then ask, was this cost already part of the decision? If yes, maybe you are adjusting. But sometimes the cost is bigger than you expected. Then it deserves another look. The important thing is not to treat every painful feeling as proof. Sometimes you chose wrong. Sometimes you simply discovered that even the right choice can hurt. Part 3. You may be missing who you could have become. Sometimes the thing you keep thinking about is not the choice itself. It is the person you imagined becoming through that choice. You turned down a job in another city. Months later, you still think about it. But maybe you do not actually miss the job. You miss the version of yourself you pictured there. More independent, more adventurous, starting over somewhere new. That future never happened, and sometimes that is what hurts. The same thing can happen after a relationship ends. Your mind remembers the soft parts, the good conversations, the moments when they understood you, the version of them you hoped would return. But you may also miss something else. The home you imagined together, the trips you talked about, the person you thought you would become beside them. You can know the relationship needed to end, and still feel sad about that future disappearing. I think that is easy to confuse with regret. You start thinking, maybe I should have stayed. But maybe you do not want the relationship back. Maybe you miss what you hoped your life would become. That difference matters. So when an old decision keeps pulling you back, ask, what did I imagine becoming there? Maybe it was freedom, adventure, closeness, confidence, a fresh start. Then ask something harder. Do I really need that old path to become more of that person? Sometimes the answer is no. You may have lost one route. But you did not necessarily lose the part of yourself that route represented. Part 4. Your mind keeps looking for certainty that no decision can give. The hardest part of a decision is not always choosing. Sometimes it is accepting that you may never know for sure. What if you had stayed? What if you had taken the other job? What if you had waited a little longer? There is no way to run both lives and compare the results. But your mind still wants an answer. Did I make the right choice? Would the other path have been better? That question can keep a decision alive for months. Most real decisions are made with incomplete information. You choose with what you know at the time. Then life keeps moving, more information arrives, and this is where things get unfair. Imagine you turn down a job in March. By June, your current workplace has become miserable. Now you think, I should have taken that offer. Maybe. But the version of you in March did not know what June would bring. You are judging an old decision with information that arrived afterward. That does not mean looking back is useless. Sometimes hindsight shows you something important. Maybe you ignored a warning sign. Maybe you rushed because you were scared. Maybe next time you need to ask one more question before deciding. Take that lesson. Just do not confuse learning with reopening the case forever. So instead of asking, was it the perfect decision? Ask, was it reasonable with what I knew then? Then ask, what do I know now that I want to use next time? You do not need proof that you chose perfectly. You need to learn what you can, without demanding certainty from a moment that never had it. Part 5. You are not missing the answer. You are missing peace with it. Sometimes the decision is already clear. You know why you made it. You know what was no longer working. And still, your mind keeps going back. Not because the answer is missing, because peace is missing. You can know a relationship needed to end and still miss them. You can leave a draining job and still feel scared afterward. You can say no for a good reason and still feel guilty. I think this is where doubt becomes convincing. You feel bad, so you start wondering if the decision was bad too. But those are not always the same thing. You may be lonely tonight. That does not erase what made the relationship painful. You may feel guilty after setting a boundary. That does not automatically make the boundary unfair. Sometimes you are not looking for a new answer. You are waiting for the old answer to stop hurting. But there is another side. Feelings can sometimes show you something you missed. Maybe you left too quickly. Maybe one part of the situation was different than you understood. That is worth noticing. So when doubt returns, I ask 2 things. What am I feeling right now? Then, does this change what I know about why I decided? If something new has appeared, look again. If the facts are still the same, give the feeling some room. You do not have to feel relieved immediately. Some decisions can still make sense while they hurt. Sometimes you need a different answer. Sometimes you just need time to live with the one you already chose. Part 6. Your mind is trying to protect you from future regret. A few days after the decision, you may start reviewing everything again. Old messages, old conversations, the moment things began to change. You wonder, should I have noticed sooner? Should I have said something differently? Should I have waited? I have done this before. And sometimes the mind is not really trying to change the past. It is trying to avoid making the same mistake again. It wants to know, what did I miss? What should I watch for next time? That can actually be useful. Maybe you ignored a warning sign. Maybe you waited too long to speak. Maybe you learned that you need more information before deciding. That is reflection doing its job. But there is a point where it stops helping. You already know the lesson. Nothing new is showing up, yet you keep replaying the same conversation. At that point, ask, is this giving me a new lesson? Or, am I just trying to make sure I never feel this regret again? Because no amount of reviewing can guarantee that. You will still make decisions with incomplete information. You will still miss things sometimes. So take the part you can use. Write it down if you need to. Next time, I will ask sooner. Next time, I will not ignore that pattern. Then let the rest stay in the past. You do not need to keep reviewing the same decision to prove you learned from it. The lesson should change what you do next, not keep you trapped in what already happened. Part 7. Big decisions can change how you see yourself. Some decisions disappear by dinner. Others follow you for weeks. They come back while you are driving, while you are showering, or just before you fall asleep. I have noticed this happens most with decisions that feel personal. You did not just change a plan. You did something that changed how you see yourself. Maybe you finally said no to someone you always accommodated. Now, part of you wonders, am I becoming selfish? Maybe you left a stable job after years of staying safe. Now you ask, am I reckless now? Maybe you walked away from something you kept trying to save. And even when leaving made sense, another thought appears. Am I someone who gives up? That is what makes some decisions hard to put down. The decision is finished, but your picture of yourself is still catching up. And sometimes the old version of you argues back. I would never do this. I always stay. I am the responsible one. That does not automatically mean the new choice was wrong. It may mean an old identity no longer fits as neatly. But there is a reverse side. Not every uncomfortable choice represents personal growth. Sometimes you really did act too quickly. So ask something more useful. Did this choice violate who I want to be? Or did it challenge an old idea of who I thought I had to be? Those are very different things. Sometimes an important decision stays with you because you are still deciding what it means about you. And that meaning can take longer to settle than the decision itself. Part 8. Stop asking if it was perfect. Ask if it was honest. At some point, I think you have to stop asking, was it the perfect decision? Because almost any decision can look imperfect afterward. You could have waited longer, explained yourself better, asked one more question, chosen a different day. There is always something. So, I have started asking a different question. Was I honest with myself when I made it? Maybe you ended a relationship after months of hoping things would improve. You did not leave because you stopped caring. You left because caring was no longer fixing what kept happening. Maybe you left a job without knowing exactly what came next. You were scared, but you also knew staying was wearing you down. That does not make the decision perfect. It means you stopped pretending the situation was better than it was. But honesty has a limit too. Being honest about a feeling does not mean you must obey it. I'm angry, so I should quit today, may be honest. It may still be a bad decision. So I try to look at the process. What did I know at the time? What had I already tried? Was I reacting to one bad moment? Or responding to something that had been happening for a while? That matters because outcomes can fool us. A thoughtful decision can still end badly. A careless decision can sometimes work out. The result does not tell you everything about the choice. So when regret shows up, do not ask only, did this turn out the way I hoped? Ask, did I make a reasonable choice with what I knew then? You do not need to prove you chose perfectly. You just need to know you were not lying to yourself when you finally chose. Part 9. Final thoughts. You can trust a decision without thinking about it forever. If you made the decision and your mind still returns to it, be careful. That does not automatically mean you chose wrong. I have made decisions that felt clear in the afternoon. Then questioned them again that night. Nothing had changed. No new information. I was just uncomfortable with not knowing how everything would turn out. And that is the part I had to learn. There is a point where reflection must end. You can look back. You can admit what you would do differently. You can take the lesson. But reviewing the same evidence every night is not the same as being responsible. Sometimes it is just keeping yourself stuck. What helps me is giving the decision a real review point. Maybe you started a new job. Instead of judging it after every bad day, give yourself 6 weeks. Then look at it honestly. What improved? What got worse? What did you learn that you could not know before? Until then, let yourself live the choice. And there is another side. Trusting a decision does not mean you can never change it. If something important changes, look again. If new information appears, use it. But if nothing new has happened, you do not have to reopen the case because anxiety returned. So ask, did I learn something new, or am I having the same doubt again? If it is new, listen. If it is the same doubt, return to your life. Because at some point, the only way to discover what a decision becomes is to stop watching it from the outside and start living it. If this felt familiar, comment decision below. And if this helped you think more clearly, consider subscribing.